for all of your important money questions.
Thanks so much for your show. I really enjoy listening to you guys. And I have a question.
They'll give you the answers.
That explains it all.
It's Boomer's Braintrust.
Welcome back. Hey, we talk a lot on this show, about the importance of having a plan. We just went over that with Professor Plum and being prepared for the worst, but of course, hoping for the best. And one of the tools that we use to accomplish some of those goals is the plan that we have ahead of time. Insurance, whether it's life insurance, it might be fire, it might be health, auto, whatever it happens to be, we pay premiums to an insurance company for the peace of mind that owning a policy can provide. But sometimes the cost of owning a policy will cause people to take their chances. It'll cause them to go without certain types of insurance. And we see this all the time with things like disability policies. I include myself in that, by the way. Long-term care, I can include myself in that as well. One other type, though, that we might soon add to this list is flood insurance. Now, a large percentage of the American population live in what are known as flood zones. Of course, when Sandy blew into the East Coast communities a year ago, it was flooding that did most of the damage. And thanks to a 2012 law that eliminated subsidies, which kept premiums artificially low, people are finding out that these, in many cases, mandatory flood policies will cost them a whole lot more now. Here to talk about this for just a bit is Brandon Rhymes. He's the real estate quarterback. He's here on the Boomers Lifeline. Brandon's got extensive expertise in real estate, mortgage issues, credit, all that stuff, and he's got some insight into this new round of flood insurance coverage. Hey, Brandon, thanks for being on with us today on the Boomers Braintrust.
Yeah, hey, it's a pleasure. Appreciate you having me on.
You bet. Okay, so really, in a nutshell, tell us why flood insurance premiums are going up so drastically. Are flood zones across the country getting larger? Are they expecting more Sandy-style storms? Is it the loss of subsidies or some combination of all of that?
Yeah, you're right on with that. And what we're talking about here is the National Flood Insurance Program, which was created in 1968 to fill the void that was left by private insurance companies who no longer offered flood insurance. So the NFIP is under management of FEMA, better known as the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So in 1968, the program has been restructured and reauthorized by Congress in 5-year increments. The program was self-sustaining financially, so meaning it went in debt and out of debt, borrowed and paid back.
Right.
But because it was not created like normal insurance companies that created reserves and had reinsurance, it relied on its borrowing authority from the United States Treasury to cover any catastrophic loss. So as we know, in 2005, Hurricane Katrina was a $17 billion catastrophic event.
Yep.
And to put that in perspective, FEMA receives from the federal government a little over $3 billion a year. So naturally, Congress was concerned about FEMA's ability to repay that loan.
Right.
So over 5 years, Congress tried to come up with viable solutions. We even had a couple of hiatuses from the program where, so on July 6, 2012, Biggert Waters Flood Insurance Reform Act of 2012, BW12, was enacted.
Right, and this was this because of the shortfall that they were experiencing from Katrina? And I guess Sandy had not happened yet at that point, or had it? When was it? A year ago?
Yeah. A great important point there to bring up there. July 6th of 2012 predates Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah.
So this is not a response to Superstorm Sandy, and it's an overall comprehensive change to the NFIP Section 205, which emulates pre-firm flood insurance rate maps.
Now, insurance premiums tend to affect more than just those who are likely to use the coverage. So, do you think this will affect everyone across the country, or just those who live in these designated flood zones?
Well, as you know, and kind of how you alluded to there, they're saying that it's going to affect mainly the people that are in the flood zones. And the part of Florida that I'm from, I'm in Tampa Bay, and I'm right next to a county called Pinellas County, which has water. It's a peninsula, so it's got waters on 3 sides here. Mm-hmm. And then even in South Tampa, you've got one of the main fears in this area is that you have a storm that pushes right up to Tampa Bay, the mouth, and then you're talking about flooding in the downtown area. So that's the concern that FEMA has. And essentially what they're looking at is typically you're looking at a 16 to 17% increase on a primary residence, plus a reserve fee, which is part of the new BW12 that will max out at 20%. And so there's different if it's a non-occupied property versus a primary residence. But yeah, so we're in an area here in South Florida where the property values could be greatly affected, and we're already seeing some type of a drop-off in buyers that were previously looking at properties that have that flood insurance, need for flood insurance. So essentially that's kind of what we're looking at. But, there was a bipartisan deal reached to delay flood insurance a few days back. So they're pushing this back. Last I checked, they were pushing it back about 4 years is what they're looking at doing.
Oh.
So, Brandon, what do you think? Is this going to have an effect on the insurance industry as a whole? I mean, across the board, are we going to see, because of flood insurance, bumping up? Are we going to see this in all the other sectors of insurance?
Well, I think that when you're looking at these companies, they're large corporations, and they try to minimize the effect of something like this, but it's something that internally they would know, and that we can only speculate on. But yeah, I think it would have the trickle down effect anytime you look at a major increase like this. And one of the gripes here in South Florida that we have in Florida in general is that our dollars for flood insurance are being taken to places like New Orleans or even up in the Northeast. And we seem to be bearing the brunt of the cost, being in a zone where we have more velocity zones that are termed as VE, as short for velocity, meaning that when a storm surge comes, we have more area prone to having that velocity hit us harder.
Brandon Rhymes is our guest. We only have a second or so left. I thought I read where FEMA's something like $25 billion in the red. Did you see that? Once all the Sandy stuff gets sorted out?
Yeah, the numbers are from different reports, different sources can vary. But yeah, it's a major concern that we have here in Tampa Bay and across the state of Florida and even all the Southeast or even up the coast is that these politicians, we got to get it together and we got to work together to overcome these situations and have foresight to see that there's going to happen.
Brandon, hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. If anybody, can people tune in? Do you have a radio show going on right now? Is that the deal in your area?
I sure do. Absolutely. It's called the Real Estate Quarterback Show. It's on 1250 WINS, WHNZ, at the Clear Channel station. It can be heard at WHNZ.com Saturdays at 1 o'clock.
All right.
And also iHeartRadio apps, and all the previous shows are available at realestateradiotampa.com.
All right, Brandon. Hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it on the Boomers Braintrust. We're out of time for this hour. A lot more to come. If you have some more questions, you can call us 877-PLANNER. For Dinah Smith and everyone behind the scenes, I'm Johnny Dean. Stick around. A whole lot more to come. Don't go away.
We're talking about what's important to you, your money, your business, your life. This is Boomer's Braintrust.
The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors and should not be considered as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult with the appropriate advisors before making any financial decision.